is Lance Cheney. I'm the chair of the Board of Trustees for the Waldorf School of Garden City. I'm also a current parent of a ninth grader, Margot, and alum parent of Max and Bo, who are helping to run our family brush-making business in Oregon, and they are the 5th generation to do so. It is my great privilege to welcome you this morning to the Waldorf Symposium, Alumni Path to Success. This symposium is about you. Not too long ago, our panelists sat where you are sitting now, thinking the same thoughts many of you are thinking. Where am I going? How will I make my mark in the world? Because they had the foundation of a Waldorf education, the one you are now receiving, they were able to make extraordinary strides in their careers. Your path may be in engineering, medicine, the arts, brushmaking, any one of the limitless choices out there. But because you have learned how to think critically and creatively, how to problem solve, and learn how to learn, you will be on a path to success. You are on a path to success. Now, I invite you to sit back. No, scratch that. I urge you to lean in, to listen, pay attention, ask questions, and to think big. At this point, I'd like to introduce to you our moderator for today's discussion, my friend, John Renee Zatran, class of 1988, valued member of our Board of Trustees. John Renee is the Chief Talent Officer for Ogilvy, the world's leading marketing and brand design firm, with an influential presence in New York and offices around the world. Please join me in welcoming John Renee.
I guess now I know what it feels like to walk on a stage and hug someone. First of all, good morning to everyone. Good morning. My name is Jean-René, JR, as people do fondly call me. Thank you, Lance, for the introductions. Thanking all of you for coming here and being part of this symposium and getting the perspectives from our esteemed panelists. A few years ago, I had the chance to sit here and participate as a panel member, and it was really, really exciting to be part of that and having a productive set of conversations with the students afterwards. So please take advantage of this moment and of this time, because all we're doing is ultimately preparing you for what we've been able to do in terms of what we've stepped out of school to accomplish in our lifetimes. Given our limited time, I've prepared 5 questions for the panelists, and I likely won't be able to ask everyone every question, but I'm going to try and give it a shot and try to make sure that you get the opportunity to hear as many perspectives as you can. All right? So, I'd like each of you to introduce yourselves, because I think that will be important, because I was about to say, you don't know who they are yet. So let me have you each introduce yourselves, and then after that we'll start with the questions.
Hi, my name is Kathy Anderson. I'm class of 97. I am a general pediatrician and integrative medicine practitioner, and I currently live in Bismarck, North Dakota.
Good morning. I'm Tariq Carney, class of 2002. I'm an information analyst for the United Nations, based in Mogadishu, Somalia. Thanks.
Hi, I'm David Chauvin, class of 97 with Kathy. I am the executive vice president and partner of a small integrated strategic communications firm based in Great Neck. I live in Freeport. And my son Jack is in Miss Kata's kindergarten class.
I'm Katie Shaw Devaney. My husband is John Devaney, works in the high school. I am class of 95, and I'm the director of Children's Mental Health Services at the SAFE Center, which serves victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking.
My name is Rebecca Healy. I graduated 2004. I work in integrated marketing at Comedy Central in New York City.
Good morning. My name is Eric Mills. I am class of 84. I am an actor and a teacher. I teach in the Philadelphia area and act there as well.
I'm Max Novick. I graduated in 2013, and I'm an engineer in New York.
I'm Sean Proctor. I graduated 2011. I'm an analyst out in Lancaster, Pennsylvania for a small medical device company. I also own a parody card game company.
I'm Betty Shave. I'm class of 1973. I was a federal prosecutor for a long time, including in cybercrime. And for the last couple of years, I've been consulting in cybercrime. I live in Washington, D.C.
I'm Jason Wasserman. I'm the class of 03. I'm an ear, nose, and throat doctor here in Queens and Bayside. That's where my office is. And I currently live on Long Island in Woodbury.
I think the beauty is that you're seeing people who are engaged in different sort of professional experiences and across a plethora of fields. So again, you're not cut into one prototype. You have the opportunity to expand and gain as much experience as you want to as a professional. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start with question number 1 with Tariq. That's why I was starting before. Do you find that your Waldorf education sets you apart from your counterparts in higher learning as well as in your profession? And how?
Sure. Thank you so much for the question. I definitely think that the Waldorf education gives you a different perspective. For me personally, I was a lifer at Waldorf, so from one hall to the end. And then I went directly to New York University. So you go from a small school where you know everyone. I graduated with a class of 14 people to a grade with 4,000 people in it. So you're kind of thrown out into the world. But what I found was, even in my larger courses, which would have hundreds of people in them, you had a completely different perspective based on this Waldorf education that was backing you. I mean, obviously we were learning in a block system, but I had the advantage of doing a main lesson in Russian literature or taking eurythmy. So it's that kind of variety that kind of opens your perspective and gives you a different way of looking at problems. And I felt, at least for the first 2 years of college, like, wow, I have a totally different way of solving problems than a lot of the students I'm in class with who maybe came from a public school system or a similar system to each other. And I would think I was also more willing to explore, and I didn't enter college knowing exactly what I wanted to study or exactly what I wanted to be at the end of college. And I was more willing to try different electives, sample things, and I think that was definitely to my benefit. And that's definitely a product of Waldorf. The main lesson courses in zoology, for example. Maybe I wouldn't have normally chosen that, but you go through those experiences, and it definitely fulfills you and gives you new perspectives when you get on to higher education.
Thank you very much. What about you, Katie?
I was certainly very well prepared. Lance opened with a statement about asking you not to sit back but to lean in, and that's kind of where my mind was headed on this question of thinking about how much more engaged in the learning process that I was versus many of my peers that I went to college with, and then even in the workplace. Just being a much more active participant, directing my learning more. You talked about kind of problem solving and having the tools to be able to, even if I don't have all the information or the content, I don't necessarily need that, but I have the tools to be able to figure out where to find the information. I think professors appreciated the fact that I was there to learn. I wasn't there to get a good grade or take a test well. And there was a transactional kind of feel to the learning as opposed to me kind of just sitting back and gathering information and then regurgitating it. So,
what about you, Betty? What are your thoughts on that?
I would say one thing that my education here gave me was a certain flexibility, a certain habit of mind that was somewhat flexible, a way of approaching questions and testing maybe received wisdom, being willing to consider that what I thought before might not stand up if I look at it a different way. And in addition, the idea that since here I'd been exposed to all sorts of different studies that I might not have selected if I had been in a more directed kind of education, the idea, the expectation that I could try something completely strange to me, and I might be able to do it. A hobby, a study, an academic discipline, that I hadn't been shunted into one channel at an early age, but rather it had been inculcated in me that all kinds of channels were open if I gave it some work.
Great. The next question I'll ask Kathy first. How was your education at the Waldorf School of Garden City informed your decision or your definition of success over the years?
So I appreciate this question because I think there's lots of definitions of success. Society tries to push on us these different definitions, and are they related to how much we earn or how busy our lives are? The thing about Waldorf that I felt was really helped me grow was that I was able to define what success meant for me. And so in doing so, it allowed me to be outside of the box. I didn't have to measure up to anyone else, and I didn't have to follow a specific path. Even now in my career, I probably continue to learn on an unorthodox path. So I'm a general pediatrician. I also went on to study integrative medicine, which is complementary and alternative medicine, and its application to Western medicine, which is what is generally practiced in this country. But many physicians don't practice that way, and it was an interest of mine from when I was younger than you all. And so, I would just urge you to continue measuring your successes against yourself and your goals, not anyone else. And then it's easy to be successful because you set the bar.
How's it defined your success, Rebecca?
I feel like Waldorf, I'm also a lifer from kindergarten, helped me find that flame within me and things that I was passionate about, things I cared about, whether it was like extracurricular activities or things that were just meaningful to me. But I think that transitioned into college, where I would join groups or organizations that gave me purpose. But once, as Kathy was saying, it was like I set the bar for myself. And then pursuing a career that, as many risks as I had to take, it was something that I wanted to do for myself. It was nothing that I was like following the money, I was doing it because it was my fire in me that was like, this is what I love art, I love entertainment, like this is what I want to do. And so reaching success, it's like it's real fulfilling, it's happiness. And I feel like a lot of people I work with or my friends kind of followed a path that they felt like they were supposed to follow, or maybe they followed it for the wrong reasons, and they don't have that same happiness or fulfillment that I felt like I found.
What about you, Jason?
I think for me in medicine and what I do, more than sort of the academic nurturing that occurs here, Waldorf does a really good job in sort of nurturing and sort of inspiring your sense of community, your EQ, your how you are, your empathy. I think that's something that is like emphasized here, and something that happens in this community, small classes. And that has been probably the overwhelming thing that has driven what I believe to be successful, because overwhelmingly my success in medicine, as much as everyone would like to think it has to do with how smart you are or how talented you are as a surgeon, it has to do with my interactions with real patients and being friendly with them and empathetic and opening, and not just treating them like a number at a deli line basically, and trying to get to know them and develop relationships with them and their family, knowing them more for just the reason that they're coming to see me. And I think that's something that is really emphasized here, and that has served me more than anything moving forward.
I'm going to ask question number 3 first to Max. If you could leave the current high school students with one piece of information you wish you knew at their age, what would it be?
So I was thinking about this question, and there's so many different things I wish I knew. But the most important one is about learning how to learn, like Lance said, and an actual basic way to ask questions so that you reach a desired outcome. And there are a number of different models you could follow and different steps you can take to do that. And the idea is to question the purpose of what you're doing, to know that why you're doing something, so that when you're done with it, you have either helped someone or you've moved forward in some way. So, for example, like figuring out the answer to this question, what I should say, I had to understand the situation, and then I had to figure out all the different problems involved with coming up with an answer, and then I had to list all the possibilities, all the different things that I could say, and then I had to list the pros and cons, like the weaknesses and strengths of what I was going to say. And then after all that, you come to a decision of what you want to say, and then after that, you finally then communicate it, and you figure out a way to communicate the idea. And so that idea of questioning and the process of coming up with or designing an answer to this question is a process that you do throughout your life, and it's really important because by show of hands, how many of you are worried about college, getting into college, or which college you're going to go to? And I can understand that, and that's one big decision in your life, and you have to, or I chose to look at it like a tool. College it's a tool, it's a program, and certain programs are better than others, and it's a tool to achieving your goal, whatever that is, and that's sort of a personal fulfillment thing. But the moral of the story is that there are basic steps you can take to reach a desired outcome, and it's not just random.
Gotcha. Sean, what about you?
Well, from a more general approach, I would say, and this is one thing I think I struggle with on a daily basis, but don't take this time for granted, your time in education. Specifically, the people that just raised their hand about college, you're about to embark on, this new experience of 4 years, and it's a large time and financial investment in yourself. But really try to challenge yourself. You're going to have resources, people around you, experiences, people that are there to help. Don't get sucked into kind of a linear path that you're just going through the motions. You're not really challenging yourself. I would urge you all, and it's something I try to do myself, but take some time to reflect on a monthly, weekly, daily basis, and really ask yourself, I'm here now, and am I actually, would I be content with kind of what I'm doing now, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road? Am I making the most of this opportunity that, you're sitting right here, you've been very fortunate to have been given?
Betty?
I'll answer the question, but I first wanted to gently disagree about the college thing. I just sent a daughter to college. We just went through the whole process. And my reaction is, it's not such a big decision. There are a million possibilities. If you get it wrong, you can change. It's just, calming down is probably a good thing to hope for. What I was going to say in response to the question, though, was what I think it's important to know at this age is that everyone does have gifts. I think in some milieus, that's lip service, okay, this kid is hopeless at academics, so let's tell him he has other gifts and we can all go on with our lives. But here, it was really drilled into us that people have a diversity of gifts, all of which need to be respected. And I think you can hear that in some of what's been said already when people say they blazed their own paths. They did not feel that they had to follow a particular type of expectations. I think that comes from the respect that was expressed here about there are lots of paths in life, and it's not the case that one of them is necessarily better than another, particularly for you.
What piece of information would you share, Tariq?
The number one thing I would try to share is don't be afraid to try new things. I personally was a philosophy major undergrad. and a lot of people thought that was a bad idea. What does philosophy lead to? There was a joke. If you major in philosophy, you'll end up saying, "Would you like fries with that?" And I mean, I had an opportunity as a freshman to transfer into a very good business school at my university, but I think it's important that, especially when you begin college, you try a plethora of things, and you see what you're actually interested in, and you feed your own curiosity. If I hadn't attempted completely different subjects and seeing what really fit and worked for me, I might end up having a job that I wasn't satisfied with and finding that out later down the road. So I think it's really important that you just keep an open mind and be courageous in trying things, whatever might be of interest to you. Yeah.
Rebecca, what about you? What would you share?
I would just, sounds really cliche, but just follow your heart and don't be afraid of taking risks. I feel like in any industry, whether people tell you or your parents tell you, guide you in a certain direction just based on their experience, you just have to listen to your own heart and your own, what's driving you forward, and taking risks will get you where you want to be. Just don't be afraid of them.
Eric, I'm going to start with you this next question. The opening sentence of the Waldorf School of Garden City's mission is educating children to meet the world with purpose, gratitude, and respect. How does this hold true for you as you approach the world?
So at Waldorf, we are taught to be archaeologists. We're taught to be explorers, taught to be creators. And it's all done in a way that's not deliberate. We're not even aware of it. And one of the things that we do things like we learn about a compost pile, and then we learn about we're told we're part of the process of making a compost pile, and then we're taught to dig into that compost pile. And don't just remove the top layer. Dig deep, right? Go deep. See how it works. See how that decomposition, that death, brings about the life, and it is awesome, right? And we see that, and we see this life, and we respect that process. We're a part of that process, and we respect that, right? We're taught math, and we're taught history, and we're taught science, and we illuminate those lessons with art and storytelling. And at the end of 2 weeks, we have a book, and that's awesome, right? And we went through that process, and we respect that process, right? It's amazing. It's awesome. And you may not think so now. You may think, it's just a main lesson book. But I promise you, 10 years from now, when your mom hands you a stack of main lesson books, you're going to go, wow, that is awesome. I did that, right? I promise you that will happen. So we come out. We come with. We are built. We are grown. We live in this world where respect and awe for this process, this world, this life that we live in is ingrained in us. Right. It is a part of our world. And then so traditional is not something that is bad, but it's something that we understand, we live, we are part of, and yet we can evolve and take it to new levels. We are taught to look at everything. We are exposed to the world. Our languages that they teach here, it's not just about learning the words and the language, right? And Herr Rotenbroek can tell you, I was a terrible language student. But we learned so much more. We learned about the history. We learned about the culture. Our eyes were opened up. We learned the process. We learned this. We learned to respect that. So it becomes something that's ingrained with us. It's part of our DNA as Waldorf students. And if I could just step back really quick to that question of something to take with you, I would say trust in what you are given here at Waldorf. Trust in this gift that your parents and Waldorf has given you, this education. It is special, it is unique, and it will see you through in many different aspects of your life, whether they be work, personal related, difficult, easy, whatever it is, there's a part of you. You are, and I say this with all seriousness, you are Waldorfians, and that makes you unique. That is special, and that is something that will carry you through in this life. And you may not realize it when you first get out. When I first got out, I was really resentful. I was angry at Waldorf because I had grown up in this small little world, and then all of a sudden I was dispersed into this big world, and it was a lot different than Waldorf, right? And it's one thing to go with your parents on traveling and so forth, but when you're out there on your own, holy cow, it's different, right? And so I was resentful because I thought that Waldorf hadn't prepared me, but I was so wrong. It took me a while to realize that, a number of years to realize that. Trust in Waldorf, trust in what you've learned here, trust in who you are because of it, and use that, embrace it.
I think the one thing we can all say that we appreciate is that there was a foundation that we acquired coming here. And it is something that every one of us can attest to in terms of our experiences in life. I have an 11-year-old sitting right there, and I always talk about Waldorf. Despite all the schools that I've been to, undergrad, business school, so on, I always talk about Waldorf because of the grounding that it gave me. So totally appreciate what you said about making sure you hold true to that, because it will keep you grounded as you go through life and the experiences that you have there. Katie, what about you?
I think, look, I went into social work, right? So there's a purpose behind that. There are values that inform social work, inform the profession. I think they're fairly similar to what I got through Waldorf education, of kind of meeting people with a purpose, really seeing people, being able to connect with them, valuing interactions with people, treating people with respect and dignity. And I go back to the question before of, I think it's so important to take what you've learned, but also believing in yourself, and finding people that believe in you. I think if you think about who are the people, are there teachers here at the school? Is there a teacher? Is there somebody, a staff member here that really believes in you as a person and your abilities? So I would say to find those people in college, in your career, those mentors that will challenge you, care about you, put faith in you, and help elevate you. Because I got to where I am because of all those people, both here at Waldorf and beyond there.
Kathy, what about you?
There's so much going through my mind now of what I'd like to share with you all. I think thinking about how you spend your days at Waldorf is important. We do eurythmy, we do art, we spend a fair amount of time outside building compost piles. And I remember in 7th grade, I think it was like the only class I got a C in, but it was gardening. I did not like gardening. But it was the dirt part that I really didn't like. But yeah, it was a lot. But I think when you think about your days, now, I'm here with my family. My husband's here. Our 2 girls are in the 2nd and 4th grade today, and our baby is at home, our 2-year-old's at home with my mom. And it's very difficult to find balance in a day, to get in everything that you need to get in, and spend that time that you need to spend with each person that is important to you, and that time that you need to spend alone so that you know what you're supposed to do the next day and where your direction is. But when you think about the way that your day is spent compared to a child in public school, because I see a lot of children that go to public school, you have a lot of balance built into your days. And you're being taught skills that will cultivate your resilience as you grow. And so, when we think about children in today's world and the stressors that our children are under, including, parents being some of those stressors, wanting our kids to do well and pushing them to do better. I think it's important that we really take time to cultivate these skills. So art is a skill, music is a skill. All of these things are, if the world gets overwhelming, we can take a step back and tap into these skills that we have so that we aren't getting burnt out. And I think that's really something that the Waldorf education supports, and something that our youth and our adults increasingly need to fall back on in today's world. So, so maybe not today, but maybe next week, when you reflect on what you actually spent your day doing, you may be able to appreciate, from my view as a mom with 3 kids who works full time, that the balance that you have in your day is a gift and something that you should prioritize, and you will, I think, naturally prioritize moving forward, because if you don't have that balance, being used to that balance, you'll feel like something's off, and then you'll have to build something else in so that you strike it again. So I hope that you guys can appreciate that that balance is going to be important to you as you move forward in your careers and your education, but also as you move forward in your lives.
David?
It's hard not to repeat a lot of the core messaging, balance that Kathy was talking about, the strong core and foundation that's been previously mentioned. I want to talk about integrity. I think that this school, through its many ways, teaches each one of us a real core sense of personal and integrity as it relates to the community at large. Over time and reading, I'm always drawn to these proactive, strong statements about right action, about justice and justice work and social justice and things like that. Where I am today is not necessarily where I saw myself starting as I graduated. I was, we could go into the fears of college in great detail, but don't worry about that. You'll be fine. But as you approach everything in the world, you're going to see it in a different way, in a more purposeful way, and you're going to contribute in a much more meaningful way. You'll see something and you won't just simply ignore it. You'll demand better, and you'll say, "Why not?" And that's unique, and that's a wonderful gift. You'll see things, small and big, and demand more and want more from them. And you will find. Actually, I want to go back to a little bit of what Kathy said about internalizing your own goals and measuring yourself against yourself and finding your own success. Again, all of this is intrinsic in the environment in which you're learning, in the lessons, in the education that you're receiving, but also within your peer group. You are sitting with a group of truly exceptional people. You may recognize that now. I was lucky enough because, Kathy was awesome. And so was Katie and Tariq and everybody I went to school with. But as you go out, you're going to really, really appreciate that. And regardless of which school you go to or which higher ed, whether it's, medical school or law school or business school or other things, I always look back and I always say to myself, wow, I was able to sit in this class with these people who are asking these types of questions. And that was a really singular opportunity for me, something I'm terribly nostalgic about, something I'm very excited about for my son as he starts his Waldorf journey. And I think, that is just another part of what you end up taking with you as you go out into this world. And there's a lot of fear because, you haven't been there yet, but you'll see quickly that you're more than well equipped and that what you bring to the table and what you contribute out there is singularly meaningful.
How does that hold true for you, Max?
For me, when I was thinking about purpose, gratitude, respect, I remembered Steiner's aims are similar but different, like to have the clarity of mind, to have a purpose, to the sensitivity of feeling, like to have gratitude and the strength of will, to have respect. I think they're related. And so for the purpose, I was reading the Waldorf magazine and I saw Mr. Rotenbucher said, work is love made visible on MLK Day. And that resonated with me because that's about what do you love to do? What would you do if money were no object? You work with whom you love and for and doing what you love. So I think Waldorf shaped that sort of purpose in me. And also the fact that you may not, or in my case, I feel like if I don't reach a goal, I still have tried my best, so I'm at peace, and I found out what I was made of, so that in itself is a success. So then the gratitude part, I think there's a lot of gratitude for what Waldorf enabled me to develop, specifically the focus on creativity. I think that allows me to manifest my power in terms of, like, if you have something in your imagination, you can actually go out and create it. And that's a very powerful thing, and I'm very grateful for that. And also the fact that you can't teach gratitude, but you have to show it. And so there's something we can all be grateful for is Glenbrook. And I can, because all of our experiences, and that's one thing, like every year that you can guarantee to remember, however long after school. And I was reading up on that, and Glenbrook, apparently it was a gift to a former principal who then gifted it to the school. And I thought, wow, that is so unlikely, and yet that one gift, that one thought is so impactful to all of us. And furthermore, I'm grateful in general for Steiner to have created the school 100 years ago, which also was a funny story about that. It was some cigarette factory workers heard a lecture that he did and asked him to make a school for their kids. So that seemingly random event, that request was answered, and now we're here and benefiting from that. So very grateful for that. And then the respect part, I thought about any success that I've had, and it feels more like riding a wave to success than creating a path to success. Like saying you're creating a path to success is like saying you're creating a wave to surf on. And even though I'm responsible for many creations directly, I feel like the opportunities came and I was prepared when they came. And so I would say that I have a big respect for the external factors, and since we're on this uncontrollable wave, all we can do is be there for each other along the way.
David, I'll start with you for question number 5. How do you interpret the words traditional, progressive, and relevant in relation to the Waldo School of Garden City?
So the more things change, the more they stay the same, I think, in general. A lot of people approach me as both a parent and an alum in terms of Waldorf's relevance in a modern age. Waldorf couldn't be more relevant now than ever before. The fundamentals of the early childhood program, the lessons that you learn in the middle school and elementary school, and then obviously the vibrancy of high school. There are traditional core aspects, foundational aspects, but it is it is a living and breathing organism that takes in specifically the personalities of the class. I always felt that going through this, we in our class. Lessons were, 2 and 2 is 4, but somehow it was always translated to the people in the audience in front of us, and therefore how we became and who we were understood our surroundings and our environment going forward. So I know it's a little bit more of an esoteric thing, but those core values and teachings that prop up and become the structure of Waldorf education seem timeless in many respects, specifically as you get older and you understand more and more their relevance. And now as a parent, even more so. Watching, my son and how he's experiencing things, but also, the social and external drivers of where society is going as a whole. Things are different. They are different. But it doesn't mean that, those core values have ever changed and should always remain the same. And I think that Waldorf's, core philosophy carries that through, where, but a willingness to accept, on current terms. Makes sense?
What do they mean for you, Eric?
I think the education that we get here, it is based on a lot of tradition and core values. But the way that we're educated here, the way that we're taught, the way this world that we live in here at Waldorf, most of our lives during those 18 years, those first 18 years, we're taught to see the big picture, the whole picture, to look at things differently, to inspect and accept. And I think that is what makes us relevant today, because the world is, despite many things going on, it is becoming a global society where we have to, you have to be able to see and respect and work with differences and change. And I think our strength, our core, our traditional values, and that we're trained with and that we're taught here, actually support us as we move forward. And we do deal with these things outside of this Waldorf world that we live in right now. So, and it's something that we all share. I mean, I'm sitting on a panel now with, I've never met anyone on this panel actually, and yet I know them. I know something about them, right? There's something that we all have in common. I have in common with you. It's why we're here. And this base, this core that we have, is very relevant in the world today, in the way that we approach it, in the way that we work with it, and the way that we shine a light on it, so to speak.
What about you, Sean?
I think that what David said about the more things change, the more they stay the same is perfect. For a lot of you, I'm 10 years removed from where you guys were, and the world is kind of scarily different from the time it was then to the time it is now. I think that some of the underlying principles of the Waldorf education, you're handed at the beginning of each main lesson, you're handed a stack of papers that are bounded, and you're told, they're just papers, but you're gonna, after the next 3-4 weeks, you're gonna create a book. You're gonna create something. And a lot of the classes, from form drawing to art, that, kind of encouragement to create is very rare. And I think that in this day where a lot of that's being challenged, we spend our leisure time being kind of passive and, enjoying the content that's kind of thrust at us, or, the ability to, create. And that's something that is a core principle of the world of education that is going to stay the same forever, I'm sure, is very rare. And I think that is the traditional aspect, is something that's very beautiful.
So what do they mean for you, Rebecca?
Once again, going back to the core values and our foundation, but I think this education makes us flexible and makes us kind of find our voice and find, I just remember, I think it was like in first grade, my teacher told us, Mrs. Getz, she told us a story, and then the next day she asked all of us to tell back that story in our point of view. And she didn't, we didn't have a book to read or something to go home and memorize, or she didn't want us to. She wanted us to tell back that story how we heard it and how we interpreted it. So I think the foundation here helps you interpret the world how you can and what's meaningful to you, and what, and I feel like navigating the world today, we have those tools, we have that foundation of, finding your path and kind of navigating, whether it's scary, exciting, whatever it is, but being flexible, being respectful to everyone around us, and those core values that you are ingrained in you with, not killing animals or insects in the classroom, to respecting, your peers, and kind of, I always talked about my Waldorf classmates like they're my siblings, because you kind of grow up together, you work through any obstacles or challenges as you're young, and kind of get so close, you're more than just, classmates, you're siblings. And I feel like you take those values on in your life, and it's who you meet, and kind of the respect and values you use with your friendships, your family, your coworkers, and it just gives you such a unique point of view.
I'm going to ask you each, what's the one word when you think of Waldorf that would describe it for you? Anything that comes to mind. I'm just going to write down right now.
One word.
One word. Whatever.
Nature.
It's a really unfair question. Yeah. I think I would say foundational.
Community.
Timeless.
Family.
Creative.
going to say community as well.
Integrity.
I was going to say family.
Balanced.
Good. My word is gratitude. I was listening to the responses, and there were a couple of things that emerged. You know, the school sparks an ongoing curiosity and quest for learning. That's something that you have that can never be taken away from you. What you get the opportunity to do here is to become critical thinkers, to be nimble, and those are things that I think that are ultimately vital for success, because success will continue to evolve depending on what stage you're at. And you're going to need those qualities and the ability to do that in order to do that. I think it also teaches you the importance to embrace ambiguity and discomfort. We talked about being in the bubble and stepping out and also realizing that you're going to figure it out. And you have to be prepared for all of that. So those were just some of the thoughts that I was jotting down. So thank you for inspiring me again, as always, because I come out of this and it reminds me of what I need to be grounded in. So thank you for all that. I just want to take the time to thank this entire panel. A round of applause for them.